Good evening, ghoulies and ghosties and long-leggedy beasties. This is Alex, coming at you from the underworld, and welcome back to another episode of... This weekend, I'm reviewing True Crime by Samantha Kolesnik, which this is a book that has quickly become infamous due to its subject matter, where it has been ranked alongside disturbing books like The Girl Next Door by Jack Ketchum and Survivor by J.F. Gonzalez. However, even though true crime does present some pretty nasty subject matter, it doesn't go overboard with its description, and it doesn't dwell on those subjects for shock value. But even with that said, the book does mention scenes in regards to child and animal abuse, and these are subjects that I will mention in this episode. So if those topics tend to trigger you or upset you in any way, you might not want to watch this episode. Also, before I get started, I would like to say that this book was recommended to me by the actress and screenwriter known as Cami Roebuck, and if you would like to check out Cami's YouTube channels, I have provided links for those in the description section of this video. And also, I would like to say, Cami, if you're watching, thank you for recommending this kick-ass book, and I hope you enjoy this review. So, I have got to take this opportunity to brag about my copy of True Crime because it was signed by its author, Samantha Kolesnik. Like, seriously, check it out. Too flippin' sweet. And if you would like to get a signed copy of this, all you have to do is just contact the author online, which I have provided links to the author's Instagram and Twitter in the description section of this video. So if you would like to buy a signed copy, that will not be hard to do whatsoever. Now, with bragging aside, True Crime is about a sibling couple by the name of Lim and Susie, which we discover early on that Susie is severely abused by their mother. And one day when Susie can't take the abuse no more, she ends up bludgeoning her mother with an ashtray, and then Lim comes in and finishes the job by strangling her to death. From here, the two siblings burn down the house and they become outlaws where they go on a cross-country killing spree. Also, as Susie goes from being the victim to the victimizer, we get a first-hand account of what's going on inside of her head because this book is taken from Susie's perspective. True Crime is the debut novel of Samantha Kolesnik, which was published in 2020 by Grindhouse Press. In an interview conducted by Make Me Read Your Book podcast, Kolesnik explained that she had worked on True Crime for 2.5 years prior to it being published. Inspiration-wise, Kolesnik noted that no other book or movie influenced True Crime, yet it was a story that came to her. And while she doesn't prefer to categorize her work, readers have told her that true crime belongs in the splatterpunk subgenre. Fun facts. Here's a few things that you might not know about Samantha Kolesnik. Samantha Kolesnik is an award-winning writer and director from Pennsylvania. In the past, her screenplays have played at film festivals, and her fiction has been featured in literary magazines like The Bitter Oleander, the William and Mary Review, and Barnstorm. Also, Kolesnik is one of the co-founders of the Women in Horror Film Festival. Among her works, Kolesnik's short film, Mama's Boy, has been well received at film festivals, and Waylon Jordan from iHorror.com praised this work as a lesson in psychological horror. Now that we have that covered, it's time to move on to the spoiler section, which, if you haven't read this book before, I'm about to reveal some things that could ruin the experience for you. So, if you would like to click away, all you have to do is just scroll down to the comments section, and you'll notice that I have a pinned comment at the top with a timestamp in it. And once you click on that timestamp, it will redirect you from the spoilers and bring you to the thoughts section. Now, you only have 17 seconds to do this, so ready, set, go! Since everyone's had the opportunity to click away, I would like to talk about a few moments that truly haunted me, which the first one that comes to mind is Alice's death. Now, prior to this, Susie had explained that one day when she came home from school, she discovered that her mother had kidnapped a girl by the name of Alice, where her mother then kept Alice as a prisoner in the basement. From here, Susie and Alice somewhat strike up a friendship due to them conversing through an air vent in the wall, and this is when we discover that Alice has a fandom for Charlotte's Web, and she hopes to one day leave the basement where she and Susie can run off to the county fair together. But after Susie and Lim kill their mother, they set fire to the house while Alice is still trapped inside. Then, as they're driving away, we discover that Susie really doesn't feel remorseful for letting Alice burn to death. So this moment was really a surprise because I honestly thought that Susie would have spared Alice. And I say this because it seems like they had bonded over a similar trauma, and I honestly just thought that was enough for Susie to be merciful. But of course, I was wrong. Also, another thing about this moment is it's totally heartbreaking. And I say that because as we are gaining some dialogue here, we understand that Alice honestly believes she is one day going to leave that basement. She's then going to go to the state fair and get her a prize-winning pig, and life is going to continue. And even though we don't gain insight into how Alice feels as she's trapped in the house and everything's burning down around her, I can only assume that her realization of how she's never going to survive past this moment is totally heartbreaking. The next haunting moment is when Susie has Lim take her to the county fair, which for the most part it feels like she goes hoping to experience something similar to Charlotte's Web, or to perhaps fulfill the trip that she and Alice never had. However, once there, the wholesome idea of the fair takes a hard left turn because when Susie enters the animal tent, she discovers she's actually stepped into an animal freak show where the pigs have been deliberately disfigured to amuse the public. And due to their appearance, even she is stunned. So this moment feels really impactful because of its unsettling contrast between the fiction of Charlotte's Web and reality, which in comparison, Charlotte's Web paints this wholesome image of how the fair has all of these opportunities for Wilbur. But in reality, we see that these opportunities have been stripped away and we're faced with the grim confrontation of how cruel humans can be to animals. So because of this, I don't believe I'm ever going to be able to look at Charlotte's Web in the same light again. The final moment that haunted me was when Mr. Lorry died, which prior to this, Susie had a coworker by the name of Milton who had been nagging her about how they should go murder and rob Mr. Lorry because he thought the old man was rich. But despite Susie saying otherwise, Milton goes out to Mr. Lorry's house where he slashes up the old man and kills his dogs. Then when Susie arrives, she hears Mr. Lorry moaning and crying from inside his home as he's slowly dying. Then, as he's suffering, Milton comes up to Susie and explains that unless she gives him a blowjob, he won't allow her to save Mr. Lorry. To which Susie says, "I don't want to save him," and drives off. So this moment was haunting because of the visuals and the elements that played into the brutality of the scene, and even though we aren't given a lot of detail here, my mind was able to fill in the blanks. But aside from that, this is another moment that really surprised me because I honestly thought that Susie would have saved Mr. Lorry. Now, I don't believe that she should have given Milton a blowjob or anything like that, but I do think that she could have killed Milton to save Mr. Lorry considering everything he had done for her. But at the same time, I have to consider that this is not that kind of book because one of the points that the book makes is how a person never changes. And even though I hated that Mr. Lorry died at the end, I honestly couldn't see this book ending any other way because it seems like one purpose of the book is to show us that this is a dog-eat-dog kind of world, and sometimes innocent people get caught in the crossfire. Y'all, I couldn't make my mind up if I wanted to bitch about Milton or Susie and Lim's mom in this segment. So for that reason, I'm going to put both of these asswipes in the same spotlight. Now, first off, Susie and Lim's mom is just as pleasant as a yeast-infected broken vibrator, and had she not been the child-abusing scab that she was, then maybe Lim and Susie would have grown up to be different people. Then, as far as old Shrimp Dick Milton is concerned, he's just as charming as a dog dick gnat because all he does is sexually force himself on other people, plus he killed a defenseless old man and his dogs. So yeah, as I said, they're two asswipes. And at the end of the day, they're essentially two turds in the same toilet. True Crime is a book that feels like an American Gothic drama that has gone on a cross-country killing spree. And even though there's quite a few parts of this book that is horrific and brutal, it's done in a professional manner and it presents to us some interesting philosophies and complex characters. Character-wise, Susie and Lim are really interesting because I believe they were born with empathy and sympathy. So for this reason, they aren't your stereotype sociopath, which a few good examples can be seen when Lim decides to grant Moses a quick mercy killing. Then we have where Lim sacrifices for Susie at the fair. Also, we have how Susie reacted to the fair and how she talked Lim into sparing the prostitute. But despite all of that, there are moments where Susie and Lim do act out of pure cold blood. But I do tend to think that because of Susie and Lim possibly having been born with empathy and sympathy, that had it not been for the abuse that their parents had done to them, they would not have been groomed into the monsters that they became. As far as philosophy goes, there are quite a few philosophical questions that arise while Susie is soul-searching. But the best philosophy of this book actually comes from a secondary character known as Mr. Lorry, which this is when he explains that people either fall into the category of builders and creators or the category of maggots, which people who fall into the category of maggots are those who are destructive and they prey on those who are vulnerable, whereas people who are builders and creators build love and peace and they extend a helping hand. Then we discover that for every maggot there is a builder and creator, and the punishment of maggots is to see a paradise built before them that will forever be out of their reach. As far as philosophical questions are concerned, we have quite a few interesting topics that enter the plot of this book. One of which is when Susie ponders if a person should be defined by what they do. Like, for example, if a person is labeled a serial killer because they murder people, didn't they have a life outside of murdering? So, for that reason, should that one label identify the individual as a whole? Also, on top of that, she even questions if we're all brothers and sisters in Christ until the moment we murder. So, as I said, yeah, this book has a lot of really cool philosophical questions that get presented, and these could lead to some pretty awesome discussions. Overall, True Crime didn't scare me, but there were quite a few scenes that were creepy and intense. Also, I quickly became invested in the characters as well as the plot. And due to the psychological approach that Kolesnik took, this book really felt like it was a thought-provoking read. I consider True Crime to be a sophisticated book that fits into the category of literature rather than pulp fiction. And due to its psychology and philosophy, as well as its engrossing characters and plot, I do highly recommend True Crime by Samantha Kolesnik, as it is a difficult book to put down. Also, since this has been dubbed as a splatterpunk book, I do think that Kolesnik's style places her alongside other splatterpunk authors like Clive Barker or Poppy Z. Bright, but since she doesn't go overboard with her graphic description, I wouldn't compare her to Wrath James White or J.F. Gonzalez. So if you're looking for a great serial killer book that doesn't go too overboard, I think this would be the perfect book for you. On to the questions. My first question is, what is a horror book you would recommend about a serial killer? My second question is, what do you feel makes a serial killer interesting? Personally, it's not the fact that they've killed or how they killed somebody. Instead, I'm more interested in how their brain works and what makes them tick. So, in this regards, I would have to say the psychological aspects. Well, now it's time to close out my video, but before I do, I would like to say thank you to Lisa G, as well as J.L. Mulvihill, which J.L. Mulvihill is a young adult fantasy steampunk author, and her books are available in print, ebook, and audio wherever books are sold. Also, I would like to say thank you to Melody Romeo, which Melody Romeo is a historic fiction and fantasy author, and her books are available in print and ebook wherever books are sold. Also, I would like to thank Nicholas Gray, which Nicholas Gray is a horror author whose books are available in print and ebook as well as audio on a few titles, which those are available wherever books are sold. And last but not least, I would like to thank my mom and grandma. Now, if you're wondering why I'm thanking these awesome people, it's because they've had the opportunity to contribute to my Patreon account. And if you would like to contribute as well, I have a link available in the description section of this video, where for $5 a month I'll give you a shout out at the end of my videos, and if you have a profession you would like for me to tie to your name, just let me know and I'll gladly do that. Also, I have a $10 tier available, which for $10 a month I'll still give you the shout out, but at the beginning of every month I'll send you over a photo because I do creepy photography on the side, and once you receive that you can print it off, do whatever you like. So if you're able to do that, that's awesome. If not, no sweat. All I hope is you return to this channel so we can have a good time together. And if you would like to hit me up on social media, links to my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok are all available in the description section of this video. Also, if you have yet to subscribe to this channel, be sure to subscribe and click that notifications bell because I have more book reviews coming in the near future. So until we see each other again, I hope you have a great week and sweet nightmares.